फिर से बनी एक कथा। सुबह सवेरे उठ के मुन्ना मीठा खाने को तैयार, पर खाया चेहरे से रौनक, क्योंकि हाथ में दे दिया डोनट। नो जलेबी, यूफरेबी, अरेंज मैरिज का नया उसूल, माय किचन माय रूल। लेकिन ये क्या, चाय और समोसे को खा गए पिज्जा और मूका, कि रोका है या धोखा। रगड़ रगड़ की एड़ियां, चढ़ गया वो सीढ़ियां। मिल तो गया आशीर्वाद, पर भैया ये कैसा प्रसाद। कपकेक वेरी फिट। गुड कॉप बैड कॉप खेल के पांडे शाइन कर गया, पर क्रिमिनल को पकड़ते पकड़ते खुद क्राइम कर गया। दरोगा खाए बर्गर, वड़ा पाव का मर्डर। मैडम है इन्फ्लुएंसर विद 300K फॉलोअर्स, और ये डाला एस्थेटिक्स पोस्ट ऑफ पास्ता। पर ये क्या किया, समोसे का नाश्ता। समोसा नहीं किया पोस्ट, क्योंकि क्या सोचेंगे दोस्त। अपना खाना शान से दिखाना।
Promoting local food. Anything else apart from that? Okay. I think when we were building, or when we were brainstorming for this movie, it had to be the ethos of why Samosa Party, right? A lot of people ask us that why are you building a brand of samosas? Samosas are available everywhere, and you don't need a special place to go to. You can go to any neighborhood shop and you will get a samosa, you will get a vada pav, and so on. So what is the need of building something like this? So we wanted to distill our brand's purpose into this movie, and I think branding starts with just there, right? You have to distill the purpose of why you exist, why are you doing what you're doing, and then be able to communicate that story. So for us, it went back to just looking around, and when I say us, it's my team, it's me and my co-founder, who's also my husband. So both of us, we thought that there is this colonization of food that has happened in our country, right? And there is another term that we use very frequently called samosa shaming. That people are embarrassed to post about their samosas, pakoras, vada pav and the likes. We want to post about all the sushi, pasta, pizza that we're eating, but we're embarrassed. We don't want to showcase this aspect of our life because it probably will be looked down upon by people. So we said, how do we change this, and why should we change it to start with? Number one, you see that 30 years ago or 35 years ago, when the larger brands with pizzas, burgers, tacos, and the donuts, when they came into India, they said, okay, this is fast food, right? This is what fast food is. It has to be served in a certain environment. There will be digital menus. You will have to take your own food, and so on and so forth, right? There was the set template from most of the American brands, which was sold to Indians, that this is what fast food should look like, and this is the place where you consume fast food should look like. So what happened to samosa, pakodi, chaat, and everything else? That became street food. And that's the branding, and that's the positioning we're trying to change today, right? Street food means it's a little lower in the spectrum, it's pedestrian, it is dirty, and somehow we believed that story. As Indians, we said, okay, that's fine, we are street food, and your food is fast food, or your food is QSR food. So that's the narrative that we are trying to change. We are trying to build a brand on samosas and all things Indian ethnic food that we stand for. And while we are doing that, of course, we've identified what are the pain points or what are the things that matter to the consumer. Number one, the environment, the hygiene, the branding, the variety that is available at an international brand, that should be made available to customers even in an environment of Samosa Party. So that's the ethos, and with that we distilled it into the script of this movie, where we said, why are we not showing off our desi food? We must be able to show it off. We must be able to feel proud of our Indian heritage, and food is a big part of our heritage, right? We don't dress up like Indians every day. We wear clothes which are globally relevant, but we eat Indian food every day, every meal, right? 3 times, 4 times a day. So why should we not be able to showcase that with a lot of pride that our culture deserves? So with that purpose, we started the brand, and that purpose is therefore reflected in everything we do at the brand. So whether it is finding our voice, which could be, we speak Hindi, English. We also speak Kannada, where we are present in Bangalore. We speak in Telugu, where we are present in Hyderabad. So wherever our outlets are, we encourage local elements in our store designs. We encourage our teams speaking that language, so much so that, our packaging boxes and everything, our samosa boxes, they actually say BC on top, right? Because that's what the brand stands for. It stands for a localized snack which is now being presented to you in a contemporary format at par with all other international brands and so on, right? So I won't take, I think we have a lot of people and we may have a few entrepreneurs here. Anybody from the brand side, any entrepreneurs building in the consumer space? No one? Anyone who works in marketing or branding? Okay, great. So I will get less questions then. So yeah, the brand as I see it, right? I think a lot of people confuse brand as just a logo or a font style or a website and an identity, right? I think brand goes much, much deeper than that. And the brand goes a lot more beyond that, right? And today, in today's day and age, whether or not you are branding your product, it's still being branded in the consumer's mind. Whether it's good, bad, or ugly, whatever the case may be. But people are still perceiving your brand to be something. Your employees are perceiving your brand to be something, and that is the reality. You may say, I have not done branding, but that's not true. Anything and everything is branded because whatever is the impression your product is having on a consumer, an employee, or any other significant stakeholder, that stands for branding, right? Without you realizing it or without you having to put in an effort behind that. So sooner or later, it's important for founders or anybody in the consumer, B2B, B2C, any kind of space that you are, that you take a hard look at what is your brand standing for, what are people perceiving of this, and fix whatever you don't want it to stand for, right? Sure. Correct. And I think it's important for everybody to be aware of a brand power right now, right? If you look back 20 years ago, right, you purchased, atta or dal or commodities, everything came as just unbranded commodities. But this is not the day and age for commodities. Today, everything has to be branded. We don't buy unbranded atta anymore. We don't buy unbranded oil anymore. And gradually, even commodities like potatoes, onions, and tomatoes are also being branded, right? You have brands for these vegetables as well, and there are people who have their preferences that I prefer the potatoes from a particular brand or a particular app or a particular source. So I think if you are building specifically in the consumer space, not spending enough time on branding your product, you're actually leaving money on the table, right? And as a business owner, you have to spend enough and more time crafting that brand story, understanding the purpose, right, from what is it doing to you, what is it doing to your consumer, and then being able to tell that out as loudly and to as many people as possible. Yes, please.
How important it is for services to be branded?
I think, see, branding is very closely tied to communication. It's also very, very closely tied. And when we say brand, right, there's 2-3 different parts to it. Number one is specifically on services. People are choosy. People are spoiled for number of choices. So I think, especially in service businesses, trust is very important. Because, you're not just buying a product that you can throw away. If it's a service of any kind, you cannot return it. You will never get your money back. And many a times those services are also, they're irrevocable. In a way, let's say you got something done to your hair. There's nothing you can do if it goes bad, right? So in service businesses also, it's even more important. I think you have to choose the voice that you want to be, whether you want to double down on premiumness of your service, you want to double down on the convenience of the service, you want to double down on the trustworthiness. You'll have to choose maybe one niche and then, one or two things that will come along with it. But you choose one communication bucket and say, this is what I want to stand for. It could be trust, it could be convenience, it could be price, it could be availability. Whatever that is, make that one thing your go-to thing and say, this is my strength and this is what I want to stand for. And then everything else, maybe, one or two other ancillary things you build along with that. But 90% of your time should go in communicating that one thing. Mhm.
then does that dilute your brand?
Not necessary. It can become a brand family, right? For example, if you look at most of the travel apps today, they not, most of them started with just flight services, but today they provide you hotel bookings, they provide you cab bookings, and so on and so forth. I think some people start with a bouquet of services right in the beginning, which would be a family of brands, sub brands within the one large brand, and then there are some people who start with subsequently. Let me build one. And then go to the next. For example, if you look at Swiggy, they started with hyperlocal food delivery, then they've gone into Instamart, then they've gone into something. So it's possible to build multiple of them, but then as a brand owner and a company owner, you have to be very, very clear that you're not diluting the purpose of from one to the other. Also, they can't be clashing with each other. For example, if we sell samosas, we can't suddenly start saying now we will also sell health foods, right? Because people don't know us for that and they will not give us credit for it. If we build our brand equity in this one space where we are saying that enjoy yourselves, indulge yourselves, and we are the best place to come and indulge, then we can't pick up another charter and say, oh, by the way, I also do all of these things, right? There can be a sub segment for, say, maybe that one consumer in a group of 10 who would want to eat a slightly more conscious meal, but you can't really double down on that communication.
How can we promote our brand organically, not spending much money? Today everything is money.
I think number one is, if your story is real, and it will take a long time, right? I think money only fast tracks things. It doesn't solve the problem at hand, right? A lot of people over communicate and they probably also communicate the wrong things because they have too much money. I think money will not really solve the problem of communication per se, but there are many, many ways. Social media has good reach today. If your story is authentic, if you're telling it, if you're doing it consistently every day, one day will come or one moment will come where it will get picked up, right? It's happened with us many a times where we have found people have discovered us where we did not make any, we did not spend any effort or any kind of communication money, but we organically got discovered. In other places, we spent tons of money on advertising and thing, and still it did not go through because maybe the message was weak. Also, sometimes serendipity has a big role to play, so we can't discount that as well.
So, perfect segue when you said that through social media you can get discovered
Right.
organically. So, I'm a personal branding strategist traveling all the way from Delhi to attend this event, and a lot of times founders would ask me, what is the point of personal branding at all? Why do I spend so much time on social media, posting consistently? So, what's your take on that? I'd love to hear.
I think the number one thing, like what I said to the lady here, I think the number one thing is when you put a face to a brand, it builds authenticity and trust, right? When you know who's behind this company or what is the purpose of this person, provided that there is no clash in your social image and what you're trying to do, right? If there is authenticity and if you're able to communicate, I mean, nobody is better than you to tell your story, right? You've seen the struggles, you've lived that purpose. So any celebrity face or anybody else will not do as good a job. It won't be as heartfelt as what you will be able to communicate. So I feel it's important. Of course, don't overdo it because then that's where the authenticity starts to blur, right? There has to be the right balance of how much to communicate and where to draw the line. You can't have for example, as a consumer founder, you can't have a public opinion on everything that's happening. Because some of those things, maybe it's okay for you to reserve your views and keep them personal because you don't want to get into the middle of a controversy because that also will probably not be seen as the right move. Yes, please.
So, if you were to start at an early stage, is there any method? How much should we spend on branding, marketing? Is it just
Actually, there is no right formula, to be honest, right? Again, a lot of it depends on, what is the medium you're choosing to communicate. Where is your audience sitting? A lot of times, people spend money on social media, but their audience is probably not there. Like for ultra luxury products, nobody is buying it just by seeing it on an Instagram or a Facebook. For that, you will have to make different kind of connections with your consumers. You will have to go where they are, right? So a lot of it is driven by what's your product, who is your consumer, what does the consumer's profile look like, and where is the best place for you to catch them, right? So there's no hard and fast rule. To me personally, less is more. The less money you spend money and time and effort on branding. Don't just overspend money on communication. Sorry, I wouldn't comment on that. I'm not an expert.
How do you measure buying intent through social media marketing? Because social media has become a pastime.
It's very difficult. It's a communication tool, I would say. So for a lot of brands, right? Again, depends. Like I said, you have to see where your consumers are and what your product is. If you are an impulse product, which somebody can actually just click and go to next three pages and just check out and buy it there and then it will work for you. But if you are a product which is not relevant at that time of the day, or that location or that situation for you, it won't work. For example, for us, it's a communication tool. If somebody is sitting at 2 o'clock in the morning and he's seeing a Samosa Party ad, he's not going to order the samosa at 2 o'clock. He will only order when he's hungry. So I can communicate with him and I can communicate with the consumer that I exist, this is what I do, and the next time you are hungry, he will probably remember. Yes, communication and reach is the number one thing. And then sales, I've hardly ever, the reason why customer acquisition costs are rising for a lot of brands is because consumers are also taking their time to do that purchase. They have to see you in multiple places, they have to see multiple influencers talking about you before they eventually buy the product. Unless they need it, unless there is actually a need and I'm looking for a product, let's say I'm looking for a hair oil, and suddenly some nice hair oil ad or some endorsement comes up, then I already have a latent need which I'm going to just convert into a sale. But if I'm not looking for a product, then there's so many brands out there right now. So, but it's a necessary evil. You can't live without it. As a consumer brand, you cannot say that I don't endorse this or whatever. I think the number one thing, whether it's branding or, I mean, we are discussing other things apart from branding also. The number one thing for any consumer brand and a founder is that you have to be present where your consumers are. If I'm living in a different universe and I think that, they will discover me on Mars, that's not going to happen. I will have to go where the consumer is. I will have to speak his language and I will have to show him my value proposition. And that's the only way to do business. If I expect that they will discover me on their own and they will come to me on my own terms, then I'm not building a viable business. It's an ego trip, perhaps. Any other questions?
So how different would it have been if Swiggy and Zomato got the Samosa Party to penetrate it?
Penetration would have been slower, for sure. I think today, with a lot of the digital platforms, not just Swiggy, Zomato, right? Let's look at even Amazon, Flipkart and the likes, or even what's happening with quick commerce today. I think platforms provide you reach, much faster reach, much faster access, and they take away a lot of your problems as well, right? Like brands know how to create a product, but distribution, which is a much larger puzzle to crack, actually gets cracked if you partner with one of these people. Correct, which is why I'm saying distribution is solved. No, they are bringing me closer to my customer. Mm-hmm. We do both. We have offline outlets also. We always were an offline brand, but COVID happened. So we were always building an offline brand, right? We had to close a few outlets when COVID happened. And then we became only online, and now we are back to offline as well. So it wouldn't have been any different because the product is the same. And luckily in our case, the product is very universal. It can travel really well. It's very apt for any kind of gathering or social setting, right? So you can actually go to it or it can come to you and the experience doesn't change much. It's just, maybe a 0.1% difference here and there. But it wouldn't have been any drastically different. I think what did happen is the acceleration is much faster. When you have a platform which is spreading your product, or somebody who's creating that distribution mechanism for you, it's much easier. Building your own delivery, building your own mechanism to source those orders, right, to reach those consumers, that is a very, very hard part. Productization is easier. Distribution is where a lot of brands actually fail. Sure.
And the impact to the brand.
Mm-hmm.
So what we find is Swiggy and Zomato sometimes change the product mix of the brand. So if you are giving, say, 2 samosas in a plate,
Mm-hmm.
they kind of give you 2 samosas and something else in a plate and create a new price point on their platform.
Are you saying that they create their own private brand?
No, No, they use
They
your
make
brand,
mix.
but they change the product mix that they
No,
offer
they
to
can't
the
do
end
that.
consumer.
They should not be doing that. We haven't faced that
You
ever.
don't have a clause that allows them to do that, right?
Technically, no, no. I think where, and I hear this from a lot of restaurateurs actually. I think it's very important to keep an eye on what's happening on the platform on your brand. You have to check it every day. Like we've had a lot of copyright infringement issues. We've had brands with our logo started in Jaipur and Indore and where all. So we discovered and then we reached out and said this person is using my logo, this person is using my pictures. It's very easy to plagiarize, right? So those things you have to keep an eye on. While they have the mechanism to do it, but they have no incentive. For them, brand A and B are the same, right? If somebody sitting somewhere else has copied your pictures or logos, it doesn't matter to them. So you have to keep an eye.
The question was around whether the commission or the structure on the pricing plan determines whether they promote
No,
one brand.
no, nothing like that. Nothing like that. To be honest, I mean, from what I understand from our conversations, and we do have conversations with a lot of senior people in these teams now, their real revenue is not really coming from just restaurant commissions, right? It's beyond that. It's the marketing, it's the platform fees and everything else. So for them, it's in their best interest to grow the number of orders and grow the average order value on those. So, and that's also in our best interest. So I think in that sense, the interests are aligned for both the distributor and the brand. So if you can, find the right way to work where it works for both parties, then it's actually a win-win, right? You're
You talked about how multinationals build their brand
Mhm.
aggressively. Can you name any most successful Indian brands?
Unfortunately, a lot of Indian brands haven't created international. In India, I think, we look at our space. I think Haldiram has done a phenomenal job. They've been undisputed for years, and anything they do it well, right? Whether it is their QSRs or it is their packaged products or even their export division. I think their focus on the product, the quality, it shows through. And the other piece, I think, for consumer brands, which is very, very important, is that you should be age agnostic, gender agnostic, and some of these things, unless you're building in a very niche category. If you're yeah, I'm talking about more QSR food brands for now. But I think that's very important that, some of these brands, they've been able to be relevant to our grandparents, to parents, to us, and maybe our children in the future. And that's how longevity is created. That's how brand trust is created. Right?
Hi, so right here.
Okay.
Sorry. So I'm Kanishk. I'm trying to start a watch brand, mass premium D2C.
Sure.
So basically, we were going through the entire branding process, right? And we were working with people in branding, and they had all these frameworks, brand tone of voice, and everything.
Archetypes.
So archetypes and stuff like that. So like like in the start, I thought like we're going to set an archetype and it's going to go like that. But do you think those frameworks actually apply over a period of time? And can you set a tone and in the start and just stick to it forever, or like you discover along the way and everything? Because like I was super confused. I'm not from this
Yeah.
branding and marketing set. Like I don't have that kind of a creative mind.
No, you don't have to
Inherent.
worry about it, Kanishk. I think the number one thing is talk to your consumers and understand what is it that they're looking for in that product solution, right? If it's a watch, are they looking for style, like somebody like a Fast Track or whatever? Are they looking for legacy, which could be your more expensive Swiss brands and so on, or are they looking for functionality, which could be your Titan, Timex kind of brands, right? So the number one thing you have to decide first is which segment are you building for? Are you building for a Fast Track type consumer will be very different. They are going to flirt with your brand, and if somebody else comes in, they'll probably go and switch because of ABC reasons or whatever. These are consumers who are very, very, for lack of any other word, they are very flirtatious. And in food category also we see that a lot, right? Consumers are extremely flirtatious with food brands. Today they like one brand, tomorrow they will go to another. So you have to choose that, is this the consumer you want to keep spending money on? Or you want to choose a consumer who's going to be more consistent. Once he's made the choice, then he sticks to you, right? So you'll have to figure out which consumer are you building for. Is it a Gen Z? Is it a millennial? Is it somebody older than that? Are you more, female centric? Are you more male centric? What is the use case? Do you want it to be used by people when they are playing sports, or does it have like an endurance element? Does it have product attributes? Your purpose of why are you doing what you're doing, who do you want to build this for, and then comes all these things. See, all this is like you've already baked the cake, okay, which is essentially your brand's purpose, the positioning, the price points, and all of those things. After that, branding will only help you amplify all of this and make it look nicer, make it stick in people's minds for whatever you want to stand for.
Okay. And another question that I had is, so when you're like building for the mass premium segment, you want to price it in a premium way, where the customers have to go through some sort of an effort to make that purchase, and the reason they value that. But then there's this other set where like the Indian consumer is a discount-oriented consumer, and the discount triggers them. So if you could like just like,
think,
what are your thoughts on that? Like, how to navigate this?
So I have a very different thought on that, right? I don't think Indian consumers are discount seeking; they are value seeking, and there's a difference, right? Discount seeking is that you are always looking for discounts, and you're only going to go to the place which is giving you discounts all the time. Value seeking is where you feel that okay, this is good money spent, and I'm getting something worthwhile in return, right? So you'll have to distinguish that. Again, a student cohort perhaps may be more discount seeking, or the way you communicate to them will have to be probably, in a manner that I'm giving you a little more than what you bargained for. But how you communicate that, I think if it's more value driven, is more helpful than saying it was this much and now I'm discounting it, because I think everybody's doing that. I see a lot of brands making that mistake also, where they feel कि consumer को बस discount चाहिए. Consumer wants quality and value.
We'll take 2 more questions.
Sure. It's a customer acquisition strategy. It's not it's nothing else, right? You will get new people to your platform on that day, and they will probably transact with you for the first time, and if they like the experience, they will come back to you again. So it has nothing to do with the actual discount on the product. It's for the platform, it's actually about bringing more and more people into the e-commerce fold and expanding their target addressable market.